Hmm? Lincoln, you want to blank? Chris Scalzi here with
Matt Howell,
and featuring special guests. And on this episode of the first run, you know what? It's Avengers time. So, Matt, it's been how many years? 11 years, 21 films. This makes 22.
It does.
And we are wrapping up the first leg of, what, thousands maybe of Marvel films, as long as the Earth lasts, right? We'll be seeing these movies. Well, the first run is done. We're finally going to discuss Avengers Endgame. We're going to do a spoiler-free version here in the first part. Then, as always, we'll tell you what's coming up in Blu-ray and DVD. And then we're going to do a spoiler-filled version. And then finally, we're going to tell you what our 5 favorite Marvel storylines should be adapted next. So we are featuring, of course, Erik Gern, who I'm very excited about. And you can check out his blog, Full of Fried Fish. Erik, again, thank you for joining us. Last time you were here for the Incredibles 2 discussion, and we needed to upgrade you. So I said, if we're going to have him back, because I know he's going to knock it out of the park, we've got to do something big. So it's going to be Avengers Endgame. So no pressure.
Hey, whatever it takes, right?
So let's start everything off with a little, man, it's actually happening. Here we go.
God, seems like 1,000 years ago. I fought my way out of that cave, became Iron Man. Realized I loved you. I know I said no more surprises, but I was really hoping to pull off one last one.
The world has changed. None of us can go back. All we can do is our best. And sometimes the best that we can do is to start over.
So the Infinity War is over. What started with the original Iron Man in 2008. We have now come. We're doing the procurement, right, of the Infinity Stones, and Thanos' plan basically to wipe out half of existence is what we've been building towards, and it's finally here. So I don't even, man, I mean, do we even describe basically what the film's about? Well, we know, everyone knows how Infinity War ends, where Thanos wins, right?
Right.
Half of existence is wiped out, and there's going to be a plan to try and reverse everything, try and bring everybody back. And the Russo brothers make a bold move, and I think this may be a spoiler as we want to get, and basically they screw up and they lose. Not so much they screw up, they're just not in time. Mm-hmm. And now we're dealing with the ramifications of everything that has happened, and maybe there's still one more shot. So, Matt, let me ask you. Let's start everything off. Did it work? Did they pull it off? Did it meet your expectations? Is this what you were looking for? Has this been a fitting end to this gigantic run and this absolute feat in movie production?
Short answer, yes, with some qualifications, I think. For a film that has this many characters and is this long, this somehow feels like I hate to say a smaller film, but I don't understand how to say it other than that from Infinity War, because Infinity War is really all about Thanos, and it's all about the battles and the kind of being, lost and losing against these incredible odds and things like that. Whereas this is all kind of like personal stories of each one of the Avengers and how they kind of deal through and navigate through kind of the pieces that they have to do. So it almost seems like it's a bunch of smaller character studies and heroism kind of thing, and how each one of them deals with it. So it just feels like a more intimate film. Maybe that's a better term for it.
For what?
For a Marvel film that's 3 hours long and involves the death of everyone.
Fair enough. Erik? general thoughts as we dive in here?
Okay. I liked it, but at the same time, it felt like a second serving at a Thanksgiving dinner. I'm full. Like, I don't need any more Marvel after this. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. Like, it concluded so many character arcs that like, I have no incentive to see anything else except for like maybe one or two characters. I agree that it does deal with grief pretty well, but if I can't spoil why I feel like they really kind of cut that short, but I feel like they didn't do justice to the whole processing of grief, and we can talk about that later. Overall, though, it's a fun film. It's actually a lot more interesting than I thought it'd be going into it. And while I enjoyed it, it doesn't leave me wanting for anything more than this.
Well, I feel like I should say that's kind of a success of the film. I feel like then, because they want to close the book on this chapter, right? That's why some characters their arcs finish the way that they do. I think they understand that these actors and these stories basically are finite. We can't, though I guess technologically we're in a place where we can continue to make movies with all these characters for the next 100 years. But I don't, I think that they had a story they were going to tell, and it's over now, right? And that's actually going to be one of my questions for you, gentlemen. What is next, right? I know we're going to talk about that kind of generally in the final segment, but you know what? I got to pocket that because the second half of that question gets into spoilers. So we'll pocket that for the spoiler segment. But
I mean, it's not like everybody in the world hasn't already seen this movie anyway. It's made more than the GDP of some small countries.
Yeah, like there were some theaters where it was the only film showing. Like every single theater in the Cineplex was showing Endgame and nothing else.
Okay, but I'm going to stick to the format that I said it at the beginning of the show. So as I said, I think it's a miracle in film production. I mean, to be able to pull this off, 11 years, 22 films, and have it all come together this well, I think is just fantastic. Is it the greatest cinematic achievement in history? No. But in terms of just storytelling and pulling this all together, I mean, you thought the Lord of the Rings trilogy was well done. I mean, this just blows that out of the water. When it just comes to setting things up and introducing characters and maintaining a storyline and scale. Exactly. I think, even though it is over 3 hours long, there are some characters that are short-shrifted. I think that there are some people who deserve maybe some more time. I'd say maybe your Captain Marvels, your Valkyries, maybe even Thor, who I think has the most interesting arc of the entire film, doesn't get as much attention as he should. Now, maybe that could be too the fact that Matt and I, basically Thor being at the bottom, went to the absolute top for us after Ragnarok, and also how he was in Infinity War. He's the one I wanted to spend the most time with, basically. So I don't know if I'm a little biased because of that. But I think generally that the deaths that do occur are meaningful and have real impact, except for one, which we'll talk about in the spoiler section. And then I think the set pieces are all dynamic and exciting. The action sets are just... a lot of this stuff is gorgeous and thrilling, and you're on the edge of your seat. I don't know if Matt and Eric, I don't know if the humor always lands. I think some of the other films, even the earlier films, were funnier. I don't know. It feels from the last few haven't been as strong humor-wise, except maybe Spider-Man Homecoming. But I think a lot of the other ones or I guess Guardians maybe, or no, Ragnarok, right? Ragnarok would be the funniest. Yeah. But some of the larger films, the Avengers, the Infinity War, and some of the other ones they felt a little clunkier to me. I don't know. It's given the large run times, even though some characters don't get to do I think they deserve, even though it tries to be fan service the movie as much as possible. I mean, they really lay out and show you almost everybody that has ever appeared basically in a Marvel film in some capacity.
Right? Yeah.
So I don't know.
I mean, I think it's interesting that you say that it's fan service the movie because, just the kind of the the wake of this is after I watched it, I just stayed away from pretty much reading about it in any way before I went and saw this thing. And there's a lot of gripes from different people, but it just goes to show you that no matter how hard they try, they can't please everybody. And I guess to an extent, I'm glad they didn't try and please everybody. They did what they wanted to do. And there were parts that I didn't like, and I wish they had done other things. But I think really, as weird as it sounds, I feel like I have to see this movie a second time to really just kind of be in the moment of, as opposed to the kind of anticipation of what's going to happen next.
Oh yeah, like I saw it on Thursday night, and going into it, it is such a visceral experience. Especially when you see it with an audience who's very enthusiastic about everything that's happening on screen. And there's one moment, that comes at the very end that you just had to be there to really experience it. With the audience as it's happening, and I'll talk about this in the spoiler section. But yeah, I definitely need to see it again. I just have to plan out 3 hours to actually go back to the theater and sit down for it. It is a long film, like Return of the King. It takes a lot out of you, but it's worth it.
No, it is a time commitment for sure. That is an absolute truth. So, man, there's so much to talk about, but I think it's all, you just have to really dive into everything that happens.
Mm-hmm.
So gentlemen, do you have anything else to share then before we move on? Matt, why don't you start it off there?
Yeah. Before we get into spoiler territory, I think it's a fitting cap. It has its flaws, but overall it's incredibly successful. I can't believe they pulled it off as well as they did. And that's something that, for better or worse, is going to be the model for a lot of things going forward. So we'll see. If I had to give it a letter grade, B+, I think that's the right one to lay it on.
Yeah, I would put it as a B. There are a couple missteps that that brought it down a bit for me, but I thought it was a good finale to 11 years worth of movies. And, at a rate of 2 or 3 per year, they really pulled it off. I thought they did very well.
Wow. I did not anticipate that I would have the highest score of the group.
Really? I'm surprised.
I know. I think I'm impressed with the spectacle. Maybe on a second viewing, I'll drop, but I'm giving it, I originally had an A, but as I was going through today, I'm dropping it, I think, down to an A-. I just think what it's able to juggle and when it absolutely nails some of its moments, Iron Man, Captain America, Thor. I mean, they all kind of have those key absolute nailing of moments in the film. And I think it just really works and everything comes together so well that I'm just really, in the end, just impressed by the spectacle of this thing and what they're able to do. So I gave it an A-. Look at me.
Look at
being
you.
the big cheerleader.
I like how you left yourself a caveat, because I was going to say the opposite caveat. I was like, I reserve the right to go higher after I watch it a second time. So
there you go. So if you've had a chance to see Avengers Endgame, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Shoot us an email at feedback@thefirstrun.com. So we're going to go ahead and then move on a little bit. Why don't we take a second and talk about what's coming up on Blu-ray and DVD this upcoming Tuesday.
This is my vision of the future. Ta-da!
A house?
Come on, let me give you the tour. Very first one on the cul-de-sac. This is the living room, where you can live it up. TV room, dining room, planty's room, kitty cat room. And out back, a double-decker porch swing, so we can always hang together. What do you think?
It's going to attract aliens and get destroyed.
I just thought we could rebuild the future, make everything awesome again.
Emmett, you gotta stop pretending everything is awesome. It isn't. Every morning you walk through town singing that terrible, annoying manufactured pop song.
That song really seems to upset you.
No, it doesn't.
So that is a clip from the Lego Movie 2. I have to sadly say, for me, a very subpar sequel. I really enjoyed the original, but I was not as impressed with this sequel. Coming out on May 7th. If you get it from Best Buy, you get a Steelbook. Target's got a little mini Lego set built in with it, which I think is pretty exciting. I like to check that out. There's also some commentary and Everything is Awesome sing-along, which includes trivia, games, and more. and an Emmett's Holiday Party, a Lego Movie short. It's holiday themed, I guess, biting off of the Emmett Jug Band Christmas thing, that Muppet one, right? Is that what it's called? The Jug Band Christmas?
Yeah, something like that. Close enough.
That'll work. Matt, the horror film we saw earlier this year, The Prodigy with Taylor Schilling, is being released. I remember enjoying that a lot more than I anticipated because it goes to some really schlocky places that I found rather entertaining. It's not terribly good. It's not bad enough to be good, but there's some turns in that's like, oh yeah, that's Daddy's spot right there. The little scratch behind the ears. That's what you're looking for. A film that I assumed would be a horror film, but is not. The female version of What Women Want, What Men Want, is being released. Includes audio commentary with the director Adam Shankman and some deleted and extended scenes and a gag reel. I just don't understand. It's not something.
No.
That'd be a horror film. Right. Fede Alvarez directs What Men Want. Everybody Knows, starring Javier Bardem and Penelope Cruz. Ms. Cruz plays Laura, a Spanish woman living in Buenos Aires, returns to her home outside of Madrid with her 2 children to attend her sister's wedding. However, the trip is upset by an unexpected events that bring secrets into the open. Also being released is Blaze, co-written and directed by Ethan Hawke, based on the life of the musician Blaze Foley, stars Aaliyah Shawkat, Sam Rockwell, Wyatt Russell, Steve Zahn, and Chris Christopherson. Includes commentary by Ethan Hawke as well as behind-the-scenes featurette. Matt, that documentary about the World War II that was put together by Peter Jackson, They Shall Not Grow Old, is being released as well. I'm really looking forward to seeing this. He used state-of-the-art technology to restore original archival footage, which is more than 100 years old. And this thing is supposed to be really, really good. So we'll have to maybe check that out. Permanent Greenlight is a French film. Unlike other teenagers, Roman doesn't seem interested in sports or drugs, girls or boys. He's neither nihilist, religious, depressive, or suicidal. His goal is to vanish. Dying isn't important. He's only interested in the act's spectacular effect. Please don't misinterpret it as just a death. Supposedly, he's focused on trying to explode. It's supposed to kind of be a very black comedy and supposed to be pretty funny.
Sounds really French.
There you go. Sex Madness Revealed. Jimmy Morris, played by Patton Oswalt, has a special surprise guest on his podcast, The Film Dick. It's Chester Holloway, who reveals all the secrets behind the mysterious 1939 film, Sex Madness. Here's a sequel that I think everybody was clamoring for, and it's only right now being released, I believe, internationally. You all remember Iron Sky? About the moon Nazis?
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the sequel, the Iron Sky, The Coming Race, is being released, but I think it's only available, I think, in the UK. So 20 years after the events of Iron Sky, the former Nazi moon base has become the last refuge of mankind's Earth after it was devastated by a nuclear war. But buried deep under the wasteland lies a power that could save the last of humanity or destroy it once and for all. I rather enjoyed Iron Sky. Eric, did you check that one out?
No, I haven't yet.
It was on Netflix.
It's really good, though.
Yeah, it was on Netflix for quite a while. That's another one that's just really shocky, but still a lot of fun. We don't always talk about TV, but when the best show on television is being released on Blu-ray, we're going to talk about it. And that's Better Call Saul Season 4. Includes a gag reel, a Slippin' Kimmy featurette, cast and crew audio commentaries for all 10 episodes, and a bunch of other stuff. Exclusive to the Blu-ray are 7 deleted scenes and a couple other featurettes. I still haven't bought Season 3 because I've been waiting for it to get to that magic price point for me, which is typically about $15 for a TV season. Usually I sit on Black Friday. That thing has not dropped below like $25 yet, and it drives me crazy. And now I got the other season.
You know, they're just biding their time. They know they can wait you out, Chris. They can wait you out.
And I think didn't they just announce they pushed back Season 5 to 2020? I think it was supposed to be this year, but they pushed it back. Yeah. I think they just started filming it. So, new to Blu-ray, Criterion is releasing The Heiress. When shy, fragile Catherine Sloper, the daughter of a wealthy New York doctor, begins to receive calls from a handsome spendthrift, Morris Townsend, she becomes possessed by the promise of romance. It's a new 4K digital restoration. New conversation between the screenwriter Jay Cox and his film critic friend Farron Smith-Nime. New program about the film's costumes, featuring costume collector and historian Larry McQueen, and more. Criterion is also releasing David Mamet's House of Games. Have either of you gentlemen seen House of Games?
No, I didn't even know it was a thing.
Nope.
It's one of Mamet's first films that he, I believe, directed as well as wrote. And it's about a young woman, and she comes to the aid of a compulsive gambler and is led by a smooth-talking grifter into the shadowy but compelling world of stings, scams, and con men. If you like a good con movie, this one is a hoot and is well worth checking out. Includes commentary from 2007 featuring director Mamet, a new high-definition transfer, some new interviews as well. I have this on DVD, so I don't know if I'll be upgrading it, but I'm a big Mamet guy. I try not to think about his politics, but still, I do love his films. So, and what I'd love to get on Blu-ray is Spartan. Have you guys seen Spartan at all, where Val Kilmer plays the Secret Service agent and has to rescue the president's daughter?
Oh yeah,
I've heard of it. I've never seen it.
Yeah, that one's a lot of fun. Jim Jarmusch's Broken Flowers with Bill Murray's released on Blu-ray, as is the Christopher Reeve, Jane Seymour film Somewhere in Time. A dear friend of mine, it's his all-time favorite movie. He's a big weepy romantic, just like me. And American Tail, the 1980s animated classic, is on Blu-ray as well. Kevin Costner and Swing Vote is being released. And then your 4K releases are going to be Black Hawk Down, Hellboy 2, Backdraft, and Forrest Gump, all getting 4K releases this Tuesday. Your straight to DVD pick of the week. A bouncer agrees to help Interpol hunt down a crime boss so that he can regain custody of his daughter from social services. That is The Bouncer, starring Jean-Claude Van Damme. Matt, what should we be streaming this week?
In honor of our Avengers Endgame extravaganza and our Marvel showcase, I'm going to go way back to the first film that Marvel released that really proved that they knew what they were doing and kind of gave a glimmer of what they had in store for us. And that is Blade, starring the incomparable Wesley Snipes as a half man, half vampire killing machine who goes around fighting Steven Dorff. It's a lot better than it sounds. It's available on Amazon Prime.
I haven't, man. Whenever I watch Blade, I just want to go to Blade 2, Guillermo's entry. I watched it again. It's on Netflix, I think, and I watched it again a few months ago, and I rather enjoyed it. Are you a Blade fan at all, Eric?
I think I've seen bits and pieces of all three. I don't think I've seen them like all at once because I catch it on TV. So you go to like Sci-Fi and it'll be in the middle of Blade 2 and like, okay, I'll sit through the rest of this and then a little bit of Blade 3 and then you have to go somewhere. So it's kind of like, you know how the Christmas Story where you never see the whole thing from start to finish. It's always just like individual scenes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Blade for me.
Fair enough.
I mean, when I saw Blade when it came out in the mid-90s, like it was one of those films like you don't happen very often, but you were just had no expectations and you're just absolutely shocked at how good and competent it was, like how entertained you were. And that's why it always sticks in my mind. I mean, it's not the greatest film, but I had such a low expectations and it was so much fun that it stuck with me.
I haven't watched that Bad Bear in a long time. All right, gentlemen, I think it's time. It's time to get down and dirty with it. We're going to go ahead after this break and talk about the spoilers for Avengers Endgame.
He used the stones again.
Hey. We'd be going in short-handed, you know?
Look, he's still got the stones, so...
So let's get him. Use them to bring everyone back.
Just like that.
Yeah, just like that.
Even if there's a small chance that we can undo this, I mean, we owe it to everyone who's not in this room to try.
If we do this, how do we know it's going to end any differently than it did before?
Because before you didn't have me.
Hey, new girl, everybody in this room is about that superhero life. And if you don't mind my asking, where the hell have you been all this time?
There are a lot of other planets in the universe. And unfortunately, they didn't have you guys.
Yeah, that's right. They didn't have Carol Danvers and her cool new haircut and being all Mary Sue. Right? Is that the thing the kids are saying now? That she's a Mary Sue?
Something like that. Oh, and they were also saying that Brie Larson doesn't like the rest of the cast or something like that. It's, Reddit fan theories. It's garbage.
I hate people. So, Avengers Endgame spoilers. Matt, Eric, I don't even know where to begin with this thing. I guess let me ask you my first question for you. Now that... And sit down, people. Now that Tony Stark is dead.
What?
And Captain America is retired and in his 80s, 90s, I
Something
guess,
like that, yeah.
which is another whole thing.
Mhm.
Who's going to be the center point now going forward? Who is it Captain Marvel? Is she like, because listen, this whole thing probably wouldn't exist if it wasn't for Robert Downey Jr. in that film.
Right.
And I would say the next lead would be Chris Evans as Captain America. And you've taken your two top guys off the board.
Mhm.
Are we going to be able to, we're going to see this kind of continued success? And who is your focal now? Who's 1 and 2?
Oh boy. Honestly, I don't know. I think part of me wants to say, and this because I could be biased, but maybe Spider-Man, because he kind of represents he's like their most popular character, and he kind of represents the kind of everyman as much as a superhero can be an everyman kind of thing.
But that's dangerous because they only have him for one more film. And Sony could say, you know what, we're ready to take him back now. Now, I don't think they will, because from what I understand for that deal, and correct me if I'm wrong if you guys know, is they finance the films and then they get the money off of the films, the Spider-Man movies.
Okay.
Marvel just kind of guides it and writes it and produces, does all that stuff.
Right.
So I don't see why they would terminate that relationship. I think they would renew it. They would re-up it.
Yeah.
But they're not obligated to. And Venom did well. Not a great film, but Venom did well.
But then there's Into the Spider-Verse too. I don't know. But considering that, Disney basically has all the money in the world, like literally, and Sony is struggling, I think they can easily work something out.
Yeah, I don't see Spider-Man being like the new like center of like whatever is the new Avengers. If they decide to call it the Avengers, or if they rebrand it as like something else from the comics, or maybe they bring in a Fantastic Four and that's their new focal point. But that's years down the line if it happens at all. The thing is, there's no one that's really charismatic enough to fill Robert Downey Jr.'s shoes in the current lineup. I mean, you get kind of close with Spidey, but again, that's Sony. And Benedict Cumberbatch's Doctor Strange has like the snark down, but he's not as like affable as Tony Stark was. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know where they go from here.
And I think too, part of the issue is I think Doctor Strange works better when he's teamed up with somebody. I enjoyed him more as a foil, as with another person. Like in Ragnarok, he is a blast, and in Infinity War too, he's great, and in this one. So yeah, my assumption it's going to be Black Panther and Captain Marvel.
Well, and who's to say though? But they've got new toys now. I mean,
that's true.
They could bring in the
X-Men.
I mean, they have not planned out anything besides Black Panther 2, Captain Marvel 2, Guardians 3, and the Shang-Chi movie. But other than that, it's all wide open. I would not be surprised if they're like, if they're just so confident that how well they did with Spider-Man and just what they've been able to pull off, that they're just going to be like, you know what, we can do Captain America, or we can do Fantastic Four, and we can do the X-Men, and we're going to do it right.
I'm sure they will. I'm sure they will. I just don't. You said you just abandon the Avengers franchise, and at that point, do you have them just show up as like the way the film leaves Thor is it looks like he's going to be in Guardians 3, right? He's going off into space with the Guardians.
Yeah.
So is that how it's going to be? Are we just going to keep just dropping people into other things? So we'll have Doctor Strange show up in Fantastic Four, and then we'll have Black Panther and an X-Men, and that's kind of what we're going to be doing.
Oh, that seems to kind of work, though. I mean, like you were saying, all those crossovers, they make for interesting character dynamics.
No, I think that's true, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was like some of those characters. Like, I think Black Panther's always going to have his own film. And I think Captain Marvel will be given the shot for a while. We'll see how that plays out. I mean, so I think she'll get her own films and kind of the center of the new cosmic side of things. But yeah, I mean, as far as the Avengers proper, I mean, who do we have left? We've got Falcon taking over as Captain America.
But isn't there a Falcon in who is it? Show? Is it Hawkeye?
Falcon and Winter. It's Falcon and
Winter Soldier.
Yeah,
on Disney Plus.
Yeah, and there's a Hawkeye show coming out on Disney Plus, and a Loki show. So,
so all right. So that answers one question I have. So at one point, right where they go, so as we all know, they split up into teams to try and grab the Infinity Stones before Thanos gets them, so they can then do their own snap in present day. Right. So that way they don't mess with the timeline, I guess. But I don't know, when they kill Thanos, past version of himself, I would think that then that would mess everything up because he's not then old enough to do the whatever. So just stuff makes my head hurt.
Hey man, it's not Back to the Future logic. They established that very clearly. Back to the Future is not real.
So whatever happened. You can't retroactively change the past.
Right.
Yeah.
Except how does that? All right, fine, whatever.
It creates timelines, man. Branches of timelines.
It's Kelvin versus all over again.
Yes, basically.
Yeah. But maybe this is the darkest timeline. It's it's Community.
That's right.
It's that episode from Community where it's like introductory quantum mechanics or something.
That is a classic one too. Yeah. And good, nice tie-in with the Russo brothers. And of course, we had more Community characters show up in this film too.
Yeah.
So what the hell was I saying?
They teamed up. They were all getting their own Infinity Stones.
Right. So I guess how is Howard Mackie going to be Captain America or not? If it's Falcon and the Winter Soldier,
I think he is. But I mean, it makes it interesting because they don't necessarily then need to build, a Hawkeye, or Winter Soldier, put them in the films because they've got their own TV shows. They can play their kind of own little role of, just showing up when they need to in the films.
All right, so let's take a minute and talk about Captain America. So Captain America is tasked with returning the Infinity Stones to the place they took them in the exact moment in time.
Right.
Right. So he goes there, and then of course it's that 5-second thing where he'll be gone for however long it takes, but in their present day time, it's only 5 seconds. Hulk tries to bring him back. He doesn't show up. He's on the side of a lake sitting on a bench, and he's now like in his 80s or 90s or whatever it is.
Right.
So the Russo brothers have said that he actually went into an alternate dimension.
Okay.
And then is with Peggy, which is the film establishes as well, right? Because it closes with them dancing, right?
Yeah.
So and supposedly Russo say that he talked to Winter Soldier. Winter Soldier knew that he was going to hand off the shield to Falcon. Mike, where I'm trying to piece it all together is where does the shield come from? Because it's destroyed. Is it an alternate dimension shield? Does he steals from that dimension's Captain America, and now he doesn't have a shield? Or is it like this is where I get. And then so that alternate dimension's Peggy doesn't marry anybody, doesn't have kids. But they also they never address who her husband is in the other film too, right? It's just he's some unnamed guy. Well, no, in the show though, they introduce him, I think, in the show.
Do they? I don't remember.
Pretty sure in the show. At least they hint to who it is very strongly. I'm just trying. So am I getting that? Am I right? So he goes to an alternate. Well, that's the Russo brothers said that he goes to an alternate dimension, but he knows to show up at that point to hand it.
When they converge or something.
Too much about this?
Yeah.
Yes, you are, because it doesn't. I mean, and granted, but that's what we do, and that's what the comic books are for. But you're right. Now I don't get it how it works. Now I'm irritated. So thank you.
Eric, do you have any theory?
I don't know, because if he is in an alternate dimension, then he wouldn't show up 90 years old at the place where he went back in time.
Right.
He would be old in the other dimension that he had created by going back in time.
He's got the bracelet thing, which allows him to kind of come and go as he needs to, right?
Mm-hmm.
So can't he just zap into that point and then just be there?
That's true. I guess that's what he did. He lived a lifetime in an alternate dimension, took Captain America's shield, or maybe his shield or whatever, because it was probably pre-war, and then he just went back, and then just went back to where he was supposed to be in his own time.
And it's so everything occurs 5 years after Infinity War.
Mm-hmm.
And Infinity War is that technically 2018? Is that
2023? Oh, Infinity War is 2018. Yes.
Right. So then Endgame is 2023.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So with the 5-year jump, so that's what happens, right? So there's five. So the film opens with them going to try and reverse everything, and they find out that Thanos destroyed the Infinity Stones, and Thor chops off his head, and then 5 years pass. So everything works just kind of like I said, a year ago, that basically they're just going to bring everybody back because there's a Spider-Man sequel, so how does it work with Spider-Man?
Right.
Because the film closes with him back in high school.
Yeah.
Wouldn't everybody be 5 years older?
But see, the thing that I read was, or basically that Ned and all his friends just all conveniently were also snapped. So then basically they all come back at the same time.
Everybody at whatever it is high.
Well, all the named characters that matter.
All the ones that matter.
Yeah.
I mean, that's possible.
That's kind of a cheat.
Yeah. It also, maybe they brought Spider-Man back in time 5 years before, just after the snap, so that he could age in real time. But then again,
But he's in high school again. And then if MJ's now 21 and he's 16, that's a whole nother issue.
Yeah.
They're on the trip together, and so unless she's a chaperone, she's still 16 or whatever.
Maybe that's something we have to wait for, like Far From Home to address, or maybe they won't.
Maybe
they're gonna gloss over it.
There'll be like one kid that we know from Homecoming that's suddenly 25 or something like that.
Russo said that that they consider Far From Home the true ending.
That's what Feige said too. Yeah.
I'm sorry, it was Feige. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's really the end of everything. So I guess that's when they'll kind of set the ground rules for the 5 years later. Maybe that's where they'll establish all that stuff, like how everybody's impacted and how that works.
Yeah.
So, all right, that's some of the things I wanted to talk about. There are more, but I wanted to open it up. Eric, what were some of your spoiler stuff that you wanted to talk about?
All right, I gotta talk about Fat Thor.
Fat shaming Thor?
Yeah, fat shaming Thor. And also PTSD shaming Thor, too.
Yeah.
So they have this sequence where they go back in time to Asgard to steal, I think it's the Reality Stone, and Thor also gets Mjolnir back at the same time. And Rocket is trying to snap him out of a PTSD-induced panic attack, and just going the wrong way about it. And it's treated like this joke. And I just found it incredibly hard to sympathize with Thor when people are making light of all the shit he's been through.
Matt, thoughts?
Well, I guess I'm just heartless because I was kind of on board. I wasn't thinking too deeply into it, but
I actually thought it was funny too.
Yeah. I mean, it seemed in character for Rocket because he's not exactly the most, what's the word I'm looking for here? He's
sensitive?
not the most, he's not the most
Empathetic
individual. He's pretty focused on what he needs. And I guess Thor is like a caricature. He's, all this bravado and bluster and all this kind of stuff. And that's his character, but he's also really vulnerable and all this stuff. So I think, I can see what you're saying. And I guess, I guess I can see what you're saying, but I was still okay with it for the most part. And, we're going to see about how many Thor Lebowskis are you going to see on Halloween? It's like the easiest costume, throw on a wig and a cardigan.
I did enjoy the Lebowski crack.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it bothered me a little bit, the fat shaming portion of it, I guess, but still I had to admit it was pretty damn funny.
It was funny.
And it was good to see Korg again.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty good. What else, Eric? Anything else you got for us?
Okay, yeah. As far as spoilers, the time heist thing did leave me a little uneasy. I'm glad they didn't totally reverse what happened over the past 5 years, because it would felt like there were absolutely no consequences. To spoil the movie from about 10 years ago in Prince of Persia, they did exactly that, where the main character just reverses everything that happened in the entire movie, and that was the end. And it was a total letdown. So going into it, and I saw that they were going to be doing time travel stuff, I don't know about this, but they managed to pull it off. Like, it didn't feel like it was a cheat, in other words.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought it was interesting the way they approached the whole time travel thing. I thought that was clever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Matt, what do you got?
All right, so first things first, what do you guys feel about Black Widow's death? How do you think?
All right, so I wanted to say that. So first off, we know Loki's getting a TV show.
Yeah.
And we don't, but he dies in Infinity War. Well, I guess we know now how he's doing that, right? Because he escapes in 2012.
An alternate timeline, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So is his show going to be in an alternate timeline?
That's the only thing I can figure.
Or is he actually not dead in Infinity War?
Yeah.
Who knows? We'll find out.
Yeah.
It could be anything.
Which brings us to Black Widow.
Yeah.
That out of all the deaths, that's the one that bothered me the least because I know she has a movie coming out.
Right.
Now, is it going to be a prequel film? Maybe. Is there, or is it going to be like a Search for Spock thing? And then she's not even the star of her own film when like a couple like Hulk and whoever try and find her and rescue her and put the soul back in her body or something.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it'd be interesting because I think so. There's a theory is that she is trapped in the Soul Stone, like her soul is trapped in the Soul Stone, and Gamora's would be in there as well. So there's this thought that that's part of what Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is going to be about, which I could see, even though they have that second Gamora running around. But I think the Black Widow movie itself is going to be a prequel because honestly, I feel like Johansson is in the same boat as RDJ and Gwyneth Paltrow and Evans. I think she's had enough. I think she's like, okay, you know what? I'll do my one film, but I'm okay with not being in this anymore. And I think that's where we're going to end up.
Yeah, I'm personally hoping for Budapest. You know. they gotta go. They mentioned it in this film too.
Yeah,
like,
they did. Yeah,
you know, they're flying to Vormir or whatever the planet's called. And this is a long way from Budapest.
Yeah.
No, I think that makes sense. We'll have to see. So, what about that whole SJW moment, right? When they have the shot of all the women superheroes.
Yeah,
because I didn't get enough male superheroes. How dare they give me 45 seconds of all Marvel's superheroines.
See, and here's the weird thing. So I know what you're saying, the way you're approaching that, but everything, all the complaints I've read of that have been too little too late and it's not earned. Like you should have done a much better job all this way time. And it's just kind of like you're just doing it because you feel like it's what you should do. That's not because it's something that you thought was a good idea.
I think that's where I land on it personally as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And here's the thing. I will say this. We're jaded old men. Okay. But when I was in the theater, the younger kids and teenagers, they loved it. And the people that I've talked to who have daughters who went and saw this, they loved it. So, I mean, at the same time, maybe that's the way I felt about it, but who the hell am I? I mean, you know, it's not really meant for me. So, I mean, if other people liked it and they thought it was good, more power to you. Maybe I'm just the grumpy old man who doesn't know what he's talking about, which is getting more true by the day.
What are your thoughts about that one, Eric?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. You know, it doesn't quite feel earned. It feels a little fan servicey, I guess is the best way to put it.
A little forced.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad they have that kind of moment, but it didn't quite work for me.
Yeah, I agree too, Matt, with what you said, and you as well, Eric. I think that I had that reaction when the moment I thought that looks cool, you know, a little late, but that's good. But the audience, and particularly the women in the audience, flipped.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed that more. I enjoyed experiencing that reaction from them. And I'm like, all right, that's cool. That's cool with me.
I think it could have been better too if they didn't pull in every woman. Like what the hell is Mantis gonna do? Like when she showed up, I was like, what the hell is she gonna do? Like, I mean, like, you know, I mean, if they just had like Captain Marvel and, you know, Iron Woman and whoever, like whatever else, like I would like, okay, yeah, that's really cool. I'm on board with that. But like they started pulling in everybody. I'm like, she couldn't do nothing. I don't know what the hell she's gonna do that Spider-Man couldn't do, you know. So
I felt a little shortchanged too with Captain Marvel. After the buildup in her film, I really thought she was going to play a larger role in this thing. she's out of it for about 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
She's in it for about 15 minutes, and then she shows up for the last like 15, 20.
Yeah.
And I really anticipated to be a long, kind of protracted fight between her and Thanos. That just never happens, really. There's a brief, scuffle between the two of them, basically.
Yeah.
And she does have a couple cool moments, but I was anticipating a larger presence from Captain Marvel than what I got.
Yeah, but you'll notice that. I mean, I heard a lot of people saying that, but I think that's also true of a lot of the new characters. A lot of the new characters. I mean, like Black Panther is, by far the most popular one of the new characters, and he's in it for like 5 minutes. So like, and granted, he was dead, but still, Spider-Man was barely in it. So I think it's really, I was okay with it just because this movie isn't about them. It's about the core from before. I mean, that's really the focus of the film. And it's mostly about Captain America, Thor, Black Widow, Iron Man, and Hawkeye, and the Hulk. Even Ant-Man is kind of more on the periphery. So I think that was okay with that. I think that's what they were approaching.
And I think I would even focus it more on Captain America and Iron Man. I think this is really, the Russo brothers really focused on sending the two of them off. And I think for the most part, they did well with it. What do you gentlemen feel? Do you think Captain America and Iron Man's send-offs were worthy? Did they do a good job? Eric, what do you think?
Yeah, I think so. The sacrifice plays, they put it in the first Avengers. That was set up well before this with Tony Stark. So it felt earned. Like it felt like this was the culmination of his character. And poor Steve just needed a break. Like he had been through so much. He'd been frozen in ice for 80 years, 90 years. He lost his best friend and had found out later he was brainwashed, and it felt like it was just sort of giving him the happy ending that he really deserved. How they got there didn't quite work for me, but I'm glad they got there regardless.
Matt?
Yeah, I thought the Iron Man stuff was particularly well done, and I think they really did a good job of conveying like just how weary Captain America is of all this stuff. Like there's a scene where he fights himself, and they start to do the I could do this all day line, and he just kind of like yeah whatever, like starts going on to fight him, and so I thought it was good. The Mjolnir thing was cool. Did Thor get Mjolnir back? Did he walk off with it?
No, Captain America returned it.
Okay.
That was part of the Infinity Stone returns as he brought Mjolnir back.
Oh, okay, gotcha. I missed that part. But yeah, I mean, I thought, I think, and of the comic splash pages, the best one was Captain America standing there in the middle of the field by himself with a broken shield, Thanos' army over here, sun poking through the clouds, and they just hold on that for a minute, and that's like basically the best way he could have gone out. That was like the best shot of the whole film, is him just kind of working out his character. And the way RDJ played his death, I thought was fantastic.
Yeah.
I think one of the big moments for me too is when the hammer, when Mjolnir, Cap picks it up, and he's able to. Yeah. Well, actually, the hammer just hits Thor, right, and it flies back, and it hits to his hand, and I felt that was probably one of the few moments where it was like Superman for me. So like the 78 version of Superman makes me feel like I'm 12 years old every time I watch it. I felt like I was 12 again, and that's that's the one that really got me going.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Part of me too wondered too if Thanos could have picked it up, because I think in his heart he's pure in heart, and he's trying to do what he thinks is the right thing. Like what kind of mind f would that have been if he was able to pick it up and throw it as well?
He starts beating on everybody with Mjolnir. Well, I think the only thing of the things I had to mention, I don't know if you guys have anything else, is just kind of minor things. I think you mentioned the short haircut on Captain Marvel, which is from the comic books, which I thought was dope. We got to see instant kill mode in Spider-Man's suit for a little bit, which was very exciting for me. And I am incredibly pumped, and I hope this plays out, and I don't know what you guys think, but that it's as Guardians of the Galaxy, and Thor is kind of like a player in Guardians of the Galaxy, because he is fantastic and playing off of Chris Pratt and everybody, and Dave Bautista and all those guys, because I really want to see that movie more than anything else that's coming out right now.
Yeah. I'm glad James Gunn's back for that. I think he's going to knock it out of the park.
Yeah.
I agree. Any other small Easter eggs, like when the building falls on the Hulk? All I thought about was issue 4 of Secret Wars when they drop the mountain on the Hulk and he has to hold it up, and all the superheroes are trapped beneath it. I feel like I'm the only one that's noticed that so far.
Okay.
But it has to be an homage. That has to be. One of the questions I had is, where does Loki go with the cube? I guess that's an alternate dimension thing, and maybe it'll answer that in the show. What else? I don't know. I guess that was about it, really. It's I like the fill in the blank stuff with the Avengers film, where they kind of show like why Loki had the muzzle on and all the little stuff that kind of happened afterwards.
Yeah.
Seeing Redford show up again was cool. You know, just a lot of great little touches. So,
oh, and Hill Hydra.
That's right. That was a great one too.
That was a great little scene too. Yeah, that was awesome.
So, all right. Is that it, gentlemen? Anything else?
I think that's it.
Yeah.
Good times. All right, man. One more segment, folks. We told you it was going to be a big one. We're going to take a quick break, come back, and we're going to share our 5 favorite ideas for what storylines should they adapt next.
Something's wrong in the lab, all right.
I caught me a wall crawler. You're at the mercy of the real Green Goblin. And of course, you know, I don't have any mercy. Where's my formula, web slinger? I hid my Green Goblin inventions in the safe, but my formula's missing. The formula that I, as Norman Osborn, was perfecting the very moment an accidental explosion changed my life. It gave me superhuman powers and my new identity as the Green Goblin.
Exposition Theater. So in case you're wondering how the Green Goblin got his powers, that is from Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. Did not make the cut for me doing a Spider-Man Firestar Iceman movie, but
wow,
I'd be open to it. I'd be open to it. So we'll start everything. I guess I'll start everything off. Eric, do you have some for us as well?
Yeah, I have a few that on here. So I'm more of a DC fanboy. So my knowledge of the Marvel stories is a little bit limited, and they did a lot of the good ones already, and some of the rest are not that great. Like I wouldn't want like Spider-Man: The Clone Saga, for example.
Right.
That would just go on and on and on. It's just no.
I'm with you. So I'm going to start everything off, and I don't know if this counts or not, gentlemen, but I'm going to go with, I would like at least one what if movie a year.
So is it a good? I think Disney Plus is doing a what if series.
Oh, are they?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Oh, that's right. I think I read that. They're going to do like what if Peggy got the super soldier serum. Is that what I read?
Yeah.
I thought it was a comic book. They were bringing back that. They're doing a TV show?
Yeah, they're doing it like an anthology TV show.
That would be awesome. I used to love the what if comics when I was a kid.
Yeah, those are good.
I would like to see just like I want to see DC Elseworlds movie once every year or two. That would be fun. It'll never happen because I just don't think they'd be too terrified to screw up with stuff. And people would be like, wait, wouldn't Wolverine Captain America in the movie last time? So, but yeah, that would be my thing, a regular what if film. But if I'm getting a show, then I guess that's cool.
Yeah.
Eric, what you got?
All right. I'm going to start out with this is not a story. This is more like a favorite character of mine. I'd love it if they did like a Squirrel Girl miniseries, because you can have like a G-rated Deadpool style kind of character. You have that sort of metafictional element to what she does, but it's more targeted like the Teen Titans Go demographic. So you could have something that's that's fun, that's a little more juvenile. But still has that kind of wink, wink, nudge, nudge, no fourth wall sort of aspect to it.
Interesting. Milana Weintraub, who voices Squirrel Girl on the animated show, was actually here over the weekend.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but the restraining order doesn't allow me to come within 100 yards. So, Matt, what do you got?
So my number 5 is the Coming of Galactus storyline. So that's one of the very first Fantastic Four storylines. So it's obviously it has Klaatu the Beyonder, and it has the Silver Surfer, and it has Galactica or Galactus. So I think it's just now that Marvel has, I know we've kind of talked about this a lot, how they're going to integrate Fantastic Four, and what?
What? I missed what you said, so I was asking.
Oh,
Eric what you said,
it's the coming of Galactus.
Oh, the coming of Galactus. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so basically the first kind of big Fantastic Four stories, and they could bring in kind of a whole cosmic element of it and kind of introduce all that stuff. So I think that's if they had to kind of go with Chris's what if thing, if they had the thing to bring in the Beyonder, I mean that would be insane. A big bald baby with glowing eyes.
Wait, is that like a new thing?
What?
The coming of Galactus? Because the Beyonder isn't that much later with Secret Wars and stuff. You're talking about Uatu, the Watcher?
Yeah, the Watcher. Yes, excuse me. You're right. I am. I messed it up. Yes, the Watcher.
You're the Marvel guy. How do I know that and you don't?
I don't know. I'm going to put you guys to shame, though, as we go forward, so it's fine.
My number 4, I'm going to be with Eric a little bit. I'm going to go, I don't think there's a particular storyline, but I love Kang. Mm-hmm. Kang the Conqueror. You also do it with a Mortis, which is like the future version of himself. The problem is that's all kind of time travel related. And I'm pretty sure we're going to stay away from time travel for a while. So it's not going to happen, but I would love to see me some Kang. I've always loved his costume design too. So there you go. Eric, what do you got?
All right, my number 4 is the recent run of Black Panther by Ta-Nehisi Coates. Specifically, the plot where Wakanda becomes like this constitutional democracy, or sorry, constitutional monarchy. And seeing how T'Challa in the MCU would deal with that kind of political crisis and how that would play out, and you could pit that against another villain from his repertoire that acts as like kind of a foil to what's going on in the country. I think that could play well against that particular storyline.
I still got to read that. Damn it, I got to catch up. Matt, have you ever read that?
No, I haven't.
All right, Marvel guy. What do you got next?
That's not fair. I mean, how many comics are you reading today, these days?
I'm reading Heroes in Crisis. I think that's pretty much it.
That's the one thing you're reading. So cut me some slack here, buddy.
Oh, and I've picked up the trade paperback of Bendis's run on Superman.
Yeah,
pretty good.
I'll have to resubscribe to Marvel Unlimited since I'm going to probably end up subscribing to DC Universe as well. So
$5 I think right now for 3 months.
Oh wow, it's pretty cheap.
I don't know about the DC Universe. I know they're finally putting a bunch of comics online.
Yeah.
Instead of just like number one issues.
Yeah.
But I've seen a couple episodes of Titans and
not good.
It's too damn dark. I don't understand. And then like Ezra Miller says, "Oh, I'll just write the film myself, the Flash movie, so we can get this thing going. I want to make it really dark." And I'm like, "Oh, come on!"
You can't make the Flash dark. He's ridiculous. Everything about the Flash is ridiculous.
Sorry, go ahead. What do you got?
All right, so my number 4 is the probably most famous Spider-Man story. Is Kraven's Last Hunt. It's about
I thought about that, but how do you do that as a main arc for the whole thing?
Well, no, I don't think you could do a main arc with that. I think it'd just be and I have another one that's not a main arc on here, so just forewarning. But I think it'd be a really cool story to tell for Spider-Man.
It would be, but it doesn't fit the parameters of our discussion. So, way to go.
Now, wait a minute. You cheated. You just gave me a character for your last pick.
Yeah, but you could do a big overarching thing with Kang going through time and having to stop him from changing stuff, basically like Legends of the Tomorrow show, but they're fighting Kang as he's going through and screwing up with time. Basically that's how you work in the what ifs. God damn it, I'm a genius. So Kang goes through and he changes the origins and moves stuff around, right? And everything changes, and all of a sudden it's Mary Jane as Spider-Man, or you got the Hulk is Rhodey or something. I don't know. It's a whole thing. See?
There you go.
I know what I'm talking about.
Very good.
Initially, I had Secret Invasion, but then that's blown up by Captain Marvel because they made Skrulls good guys. So that doesn't work. It was like that or the Kree Skull War. Again, doesn't that probably won't work as well because the Kree are now good / bad guys. They're imperialists, right? I don't know. So I ended up changing it, going with Avengers versus X-Men, and this is how you introduce Doctor Doom as the orchestrator behind it all.
Okay.
But you get the X-Men in, and you have the Avengers, and there's a slow burn maybe for a couple films where we introduce the concept of the mutants, and one or two of them pop up. And then there's a whole big issue, and then Doctor Doom is seen behind the scenes, kind of orchestrating everything, kind of build up fright and fear of the mutants, which of course is a double for, you know, fear of immigration and the racism and all that stuff. So it's also timely and all this other fun stuff. So there you go. It's the Avengers vs. X-Men. That's how you get the X-Men and Doctor Doom in. And I'll also do that later on. But go ahead.
All right.
There you go.
So my number 3.
Wait.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right.
Be patient.
I'm used to the usual process here.
Oh, I'm just the third wheel here. So my number 3 is House of M. Because we have, you know, Scarlet Witch, and, you know, Wanda can go in a few directions after this film. You know, she's lost Vision for good. You know, she's still grieving over that. Clearly, you see that at the end of this movie. You know, what if she decides that, you know, she figures out her power is such that she can alter reality, and she decides, okay, I'll just fix things so that Vision comes back. Sort of the reverse of what happens in House of M, where she says no more mutants. Instead, she says, I'm going to bring back the people that I love. And, you know, seeing how it affects the timeline, and you have kind of like this sort of, you know, alternate reality sort of thing. And she comes to realize, oh, maybe this isn't the best thing after all. And she learns to, you know, live with her grief.
That would be interesting. Now, that's one of the things I don't get is what her powers are.
They're not very well defined in the MCU. It's more like, you know, she can make things kind of explode, and she has some, like, you know, mind controlling powers, but yeah, it's very ill defined. So, I mean, her power level can increase quite a bit since there's no, like, definite cap on it.
Interesting. Matt.
Yeah. Didn't she get her powers through one of the Infinity Stones anyway?
Oh yeah, it was
in the films, in the MCU.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, she's not a mutant in that version.
Right.
No, she's not. Okay, so my number 3 is then Annihilation. So that's the storyline where Annihilus escapes from the negative zone and leads basically a cast of bad guys and sends a wave of energy across the universe. And it really kind of brings in like all of the cosmic kind of stuff. So you got Galactus, Silver Surfer, you know, the Eternals, which they're making a movie out of. It creates a Super Skrulls. So like, I think if they did that, it's kind of a way to kind of blast it all the way across. And in that was also a really big player was Nova, which I think is something they should try and bring in, even though I know they had the Nova Corps in the original Guardians, but having the actual Nova Prime proper, I think could be really cool if they kind of really, but it would really have them focus on their cosmic stories.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that storyline at all.
Okay.
My Marvel reading pretty much caps out at right before all the Clone Wars stuff. Eric Larson, I think, was drawing Amazing Spider-Man at the time. So my heyday, though, is like Black Suit Spider-Man, Web of Spider-Man, you know, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So interesting. I'm assuming that's a good pick. I don't know. My number 2 then is The Coming of Galactus as well.
Oh, okay, there you go.
I think outside of my number 1, I think the most surefire bet when you want to have a gigantic real universe, or at least planet Earth threat, I think Galactus is what you go with.
Mm-hmm.
And it's another way to introduce the Fantastic Four. That's how you get them in here. So, yeah, I think Galactus is a great villain. And because he's not really so much a villain as he is a force of nature.
Mm-hmm.
So, and as I said, it's a way to backdoor in the FF. So there you go. You already talked about it. So Galactus is my 2.
Mm-hmm.
Eric.
Yeah, my number 2, again, it's a character, it's not a story arc, but it's like a Goodfellas style movie about Joe Fixit. You know, the alternative Hulk, where he's more of like a mobster and enforcer type, and he transforms into Joe Fixit at night. You know, he goes and he, you know, beats up people for these for the mafia, and then in the morning he returns to Bruce Banner. He did that for a while in one of the runs. I can't remember exactly what, but he's gray as Joe Fixit, and then this apart from like Savage Hulk, which is greed, and the like half dozen other ones. But that could be like a good fellas style kind of thing where you have like this Scorsese montage of Grey Hulk going out and throwing around witticisms and shooting up people and bashing them in the head.
There you go. What like a Planet Hulk? I mean, they already did. Is that what they did with Ragnarok? What was the one they did with Ragnarok? You probably have to unmute yourself, Matt. That'd probably be the way to go.
That would help. Yeah, it's that is they did use part of Planet Hulk in because Hulk is a gladiator kind of
Which
thing.
is the one where he takes over the planet?
Isn't that Planet Hulk? Or no,
that's World War Hulk.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. All right. So my number 2 is the 2015 version of Secret Wars / Time Runs Out. So basically what this is Marvel's version kinda of like Crisis. So essentially all of these heroes from different universes and parallel dimensions, they all get kind of sucked into this thing called Battle World. And really what they all do is they have a mini series where they all fight each other but at the end, basically the events of Secret Wars causes all of those universes to collapse into one universe, and that's the main Marvel universe. So that's how you get Miles Morales and Spider-Gwen. You get all of them kind of coming into the main Marvel universe. So if they did that, that would be a way that they could use to kind of explain where mutants have been. They could bring in the X-Men from another version. They could bring in Miles and how they could introduce that. So all of these kind of properties that they're getting their hands back on again, if they did that, that's a way they could kind of in canon way to kind of explain why all of these things are here all of a sudden.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, my number 1 is the original Secret Wars.
Oh, okay.
I think it's how you see you can't now, but how you could introduce Venom proper into the Marvel Studios version, because that's where he originally comes from.
Mm-hmm.
But so if you're not familiar with Secret Wars, a few heroes, the Beyonder, as Matt mistakenly identified earlier, there's a little rift or something that opens up in the universe, and he finds and sees Earth, and he sees all the heroes and villains. So he brings them all to a planet he creates from other planets, and he assembles one, and he basically watches as they fight.
Mm-hmm.
And it was one of the big influential comic stories of my time when I was a kid. I absolutely loved this thing, and it's a ton of fun. And the only problem is I'm trying to wrap my head around on what you would do. So you would do a Secret Wars movie every year, and then you do other Marvel movies with dealing with the fact that these heroes are gone, and after 2 years, maybe you could close it up. I'm not sure. I haven't worked out the beats on that yet. But I just would love to be able to do that. And Matt, maybe that's another way you do that. Just like you said with your Secret Wars, is you then return them all to Earth. And then there's Secret Wars 2 when the Beyonder comes to Earth, which was not as good.
Yeah.
But still, that's my number 1.
And the reality is they probably pick from all 3 versions of their Secret Wars to kind of just come up with something, the best thing they could come up with,
That's true.
Yeah.
Pick and choose.
What do you got, Eric? Close
All
us
right.
out there.
So my number 1 is a proper adaptation of the Nomad storyline from Captain America. So back in the late 60s, early 70s, Steve Rogers gives up his title because he's so disgusted about what's going on in Vietnam and the Nixon era and all that. And he just goes off on his own for a while and becomes like Easy Rider. But we haven't
that
really
ridiculous
seen
Nomad costume too, with the short cape and the
But we haven't seen him like really challenge his patriotism in the movies. There's like proxies for it where like he gives up faith in S.H.I.E.L.D. after he realizes it's been Hydra all along, and of course there is the fallout from Captain America's Civil War. But he's still like American through and through, and seeing his patriotism really challenged and what that would do to his character. And you could fit that in because he's actually getting older now in the alternate timeline where he's going to be about, maybe 50 around 1970 since he went back in time. So there's a possibility they could fit that in that way. But, that's sort of like my fan wet dream, basically.
Gross. So I gotta say, out of all the characters in MCU that they were going to adapt when this thing all started, Cap was the one I was the most concerned about. Because I was like, man, it's just going to be so boring. He's going to be so, oh, shucks, kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Chris Evans really did a great job with that. And it's whenever people say, well, it's impossible to do a Superman movie because he's so good, and that I point to the MCU's Captain America with Chris Evans.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you do that character.
Yeah.
He was probably in the end maybe my favorite character. Even with Ragnarok, even with Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man, the one I enjoyed watching the most was probably Chris Evans as Captain America.
I'm not saying something.
Yeah. All right, Matt. What do you got? This is
all right. So my number one is doesn't fit the criteria. So, but I'm sorry. I'm sorry, not sorry. But I want to see I want to see a film or a show or something.
Son of a bitch.
Based off of Marvels. So if you guys don't know what this is, it's basically the Marvel universe as viewed through the major events of the Marvel universe as viewed by an ordinary person. So basically it's all follows this reporter who's there for the original, like Human Torch, the Android version, Captain America, sees all the stuff happening in the 60s with the mutants and Spider-Man, all the way up to even Galactus. And it's kind of like as he ages through the whole thing and just kind of a voyeur or a bystander's view and what it's like for the ordinary people to be kind of completely removed but see all this stuff kind of going on around them. It's really, really good. If you haven't read it, you should check it out. But it's a fantastic. It's my favorite actually Marvel storyline.
Who wrote it? Kurt Busiek write that? Am I
Yeah,
right
he
about
did.
that?
Yeah, and Wade did the art too. So it looks like
Ross.
Yeah, Ross. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I remember reading that when I was younger too. Yeah, that is a good one. I still prefer. I think it was Wade and Ross who did Kingdom Come.
Yeah.
So now that is a movie I would like to see.
I would love to see that too.
Mm-hmm.
But that the problem with that is that has some deep mythology to it. Like if you're like, I wasn't super in like up on date on that kind of stuff. I know it's tough for me to follow. For just like the average person, nobody's gonna know what the hell's going on in that.
Good times. All right, gentlemen. Any honorable mentions? Any of them that didn't make the cut that you would still like to see?
No, I mean my picks are so great. I thought I hit it out of the park in one go.
Eric, did you have any others?
I just hope they do Doctor Doom right.
Yeah, he has yet to be done right.
Yeah.
And I would like to see that. I had the Captain Universe storyline, maybe with Spider-Man, and it pops around from hero to hero. If you're not familiar with Captain Universe, it's a cosmic power that imbues itself on certain people when the situation requires it to do some extraordinary event. And there was a point where Spider-Man had the power, which is basically like Silver Surfer level stuff where you can do whatever it's just you have unlimited abilities.
Right.
So that might be fun. And also Fall of the Mutants. I thought when the X-Men come on board would be pretty good. Or the Mutant Massacre. That, of course, was my X-Men reading, the Chris Claremont, John Romita Jr. time frame there. So there you go. All right, before we go, gentlemen, I have one final question for you. This film is making a ton of money. It's been out for not even a week, right? And it's made almost $1.5 billion.
That's insane.
Mm-hmm.
So 427 here domestically and a little over $1 billion internationally. Is this good or bad? For the film industry as a whole, the success of this film and Disney's continued purchasing of other studios.
Oh, okay. Well, it's two separate issues, right? Like, it's not a zero-sum game.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of movies can make lots of money. The fact, though, that Disney is now a de facto monopoly on studio content, that is worrisome.
Yeah. I'm concerned, like Warner Brothers have learned the wrong lesson with the success of The Dark Knight, where they feel all their superhero movies have to be grounded in reality and be dark as hell.
Right.
That maybe some of the studios will learn this lesson as well. Well, this is what we need to do. We need to do superhero sequel movies. And we already get what, 10 a year at this point now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the big problem is the theaters. Because when you have a success like Disney does, you can dictate terms.
Yeah.
And the theaters don't make a lot of money off of these films. You know, they have a long run life, thankfully, which does help the theaters, but they get a much smaller cut of the profits of the box office, I should say, than they would other films. And it's not a good thing. And just the overwhelming behemoth that Disney also is becoming. If they do end up buying Sony, and now you have basically it's Sony, it would be what? Disney, Warner Brothers, and who's left? That's a major player.
Universal, maybe? That would be what, Viacom?
Yeah, I guess that would be it, right?
Yeah.
And then you have your smaller ones that are still out there, but still, I mean, that is dangerous.
Yeah.
I mean, it's only a matter of time, like I think we've said, where Disney just buys a theater chain.
Yeah.
Oh, that's coming. That's happening. So I mean, AMC just got sold. They just got bought by somebody.
Did they? I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, somebody told me that.
Don't take away my beloved A-list.
I know. That was the first thing I thought. I was like, whoever the buyers better not mess with the A-list because it's the best thing that's out there. Well, I'm of two minds of this. I can see what you guys are saying, but for the type of movies that they're releasing, these kind of big budget tentpole things, they've shown that they have a willingness to kind of throw the budget at it that they need to make it a decent film. And all of these films have been, for the most part, middling. They've been good. They've been okay for the most part. Like, none of them have been like a real stinker, you know? And I find it hard to argue. I understand everything that you're saying, and I agree with you. But the product, man, I like the product they're producing, and that's the kind of double-edged sword. Like, I'm all about the smaller films and stuff too, but I mean, you need these kind of huge, big, kind of media extravaganzas and like limitless amounts of money to make these things good. I mean, just look at what Roger Corman tried to do with some of this stuff, and that shows you what having no money will do. So, if that's what it takes to be kind of getting these same kind of, you know, for your big kind of blockbuster summer films that start in March, yeah, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, they aren't all like super expensive though. Like Captain Marvel was only like 160, I think. Black Panther was about 150. Like that's practically like a middle of the road budget for any kind of tentpole film nowadays. So you don't need like 300 million or however much they spent on Endgame to make a decent movie.
Yeah, Endgame was 356.
Yeah, Jesus. I do worry though.
Quarter of that goes to Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah, that's like 20%. He will never have to work again. But I worry that there might be a bubble. I mean, there are like so many of these superhero movies every single year, and eventually the Marvel magic will go away.
No, it will.
Yeah,
it can't last forever. I think part of it is that just think of how long, like, I mean, these stories have been going on since the 50s and 60s and stuff like that. And it's just now that they've been in like the last like 10 years that they've been able to do these things justice. So I think we still got a little bit of time, but you're absolutely right. It can't last forever. It's gonna deflate at some point, and we'll see what happens when we get into phase 4 with a bunch of characters that nobody really cares about. So we'll see.
Yeah, that will be interesting. And finally, I know I said that was the last question, but it just occurred to me. Are we all okay with the fact that a rat basically saved the universe?
I'm totally okay with the fact that Doctor Strange saw that a rat was going to trip over the one switch that brought Ant-Man back from the quantum realm. He was counting on that for that to happen. I'm totally okay with that.
You know, I mean, stuff happens. If I'm okay with a guy using a magic gem to pull a moon out of the sky and like not kill a bunch of people, I'm okay with a rat flicking a switch. That's more believable than anything else.
I guess I can't really argue with that, can I? All right. So that is it. It was a long one, but it was a relatively entertaining time. Eric, I want to thank you for joining us this week. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me,
Eric.
Coming up next week, we'll probably be talking about what? Long Shot, maybe? Or The Intruder, that Dennis Quaid movie where he plays this creepy stalker guy that owns his old, his old house.
Definitely Long Shot if I get a choice.
Something. We got lots of stuff.
We got stuff.
Yeah, there's a ton of stuff. So don't forget to check out Erik's blog at Full of Fried Fish. Is that a .com? Is that sufficient for us? Or should we go to the blog.erikgern.com?
Yeah, either one should work. Just type it into Google, you'll find it.
And that's Erik with a K, Gern as in Mancy. No, N as in Nancy.
Yeah.
It's a little Archer joke for you. Check us out on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Do a search for The First Run. Scroll. Eventually, you'll find us. Go over to Apple Podcasts. Give us a review. That's how other people are going to find the show. And that's it. It's been 11 years. And more to come. So we're going to go ahead and take an extended break. And we will see you all soon.
I could do this all day.